The village of Zuberi, carrying with it whispers of the past and warnings of the future. The villagers huddled in their homes, their fires burning low, as thunder cracked like an angry spirit splitting the sky. It was on such a night, one that elders would later say was marked by fate itself, that Ayana was born. Her mother, Safia, lay on a woven mat inside their small hut, sweat dripping down her brow as she brought her child into the world. Outside, the storm continued to shake the earth, but inside, there was only the sound of Ayana's first cry, strong, defiant, piercing through the wind as if challenging the night itself. But the moment the midwife laid eyes on the baby, her hands trembled. She stepped back, her lips parting in silent horror. Outside, the storm paused for a brief breath before the wind rose again, wilder than before. Someone rushed to the doorway, peering up at the sky, and gasped. The moon, high and heavy above the land, was red as fresh blood. The elders were summoned at once. Their weathered faces, etched with years of wisdom and fear, bore the weight of an old belief: a child born under a blood moon was marked by darkness. They would bring misfortune, sickness, and ruin. The shaman, a man feared and revered in equal measure, arrived wrapped in a cloak of animal hides, his face painted with the markings of the unseen world. He did not speak at first. He merely studied the newborn, his dark eyes betraying no emotion. Then, with a slow and deliberate motion, he knelt beside the child, pressing a hand over her tiny chest. The room held its breath. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low, like distant thunder. "The spirits have warned us." Gasps filled the room. The midwife clutched her chest, and Ayana's father, Jabari, stiffened beside Safia. "She is a harbinger," the shaman continued, his voice like dry leaves scraping against stone. "If she remains, she will bring ruin. Death will follow her shadow." Safia clutched her baby tighter, her heart pounding in her chest. "She is just a child," she whispered, her voice breaking. "She is innocent." "Innocence does not matter to the spirits," the shaman said. "The signs have spoken. You must listen, or suffer." The villagers gathered outside, their whispers rising like the wind itself. Some pitied the child, others feared her, but none dared challenge the shaman's word. His power was absolute, his connection to the unseen world undeniable. If he said the spirits had spoken, then to disobey was to invite disaster. Jabari stood frozen, his fists clenched. He was a father, a protector, and yet, against the weight of the entire village, against the will of the ancestors, he was powerless. He turned to Safia, his heart breaking at the silent tears that slid down her face. "We cannot fight them," he said. His voice was hollow, already grieving. "If we refuse, they will turn against us." Safia shook her head. "She is our daughter. She will not survive if they curse us all," Jabari whispered. The choice was never truly theirs. That night, as the rain softened to a whisper, as the moon cast its eerie red glow upon the land, Ayana's parents wrapped her in a cloth and carried her through the village one last time. The path was lined with unseen eyes, villagers peeking from behind their doors, watching the fate of the cursed child unfold. They walked beyond the fields, past the river where the water reflected the blood moon, and into the forbidden forest, the place where no villager dared to step. The trees loomed overhead, their thick branches clawing at the sky. The air was heavy, thick with something unseen, something waiting. Jabari held his wife's hand as they moved deeper, his grip trembling. He could feel the pulse of the earth beneath his feet, the way the wind seemed to whisper something ancient. Safia clutched Ayana to her chest, her silent sobs lost in the night. When they reached a small clearing, Jabari stopped. He could not look at Safia. He could not look at his daughter. "This is the way it must be," he said, though the words nearly choked him. Safia bent down, placing Ayana on the soft earth. The baby stirred, unaware of the choice that had been made, unaware of the fear that had sealed her fate. "May the spirits be kind to you," Safia whispered, her tears falling onto Ayana's tiny hands. And then, before she could change her mind, before her heart could betray the decision they had made, she turned and ran. Jabari followed, his fists clenched so tightly his nails dug into his palms. They did not look back. The wind howled through the trees once more. The leaves rustled, the shadows stretched. And behind them, in the darkness of the forbidden forest, Ayana was not alone. The night is thick with mist, the moon a pale watcher in the sky. The towering trees of the forbidden forest stretched like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches twisting toward the heavens as if whispering secrets only the wind can understand. At the heart of the darkness, a bundle lies on the damp earth, small, fragile, helpless. The infant girl, Ayana, shivers in the night air, her tiny chest rising and falling with quiet, steady breaths. She does not cry. Perhaps even in her innocence, she knows that no one will come for her. The distant thunder rumbles, rolling over the land like a warning. Her parents, feet heavy with regret, hurry back toward the village, their hands stained not with blood, but with betrayal. The mother, eyes brimming with unshed tears, stumbles as she walks. She does not look back. She cannot. Beside her, the father presses forward, jaw clenched, unwilling to allow his guilt to surface. The spirits have spoken. There was no other choice. And yet, as they step past the village gates, the air seems colder. The earth feels heavier beneath their feet. The whispers of the villagers fade into nothingness, drowned by the pounding of their own hearts. They have done what was asked of them, but something in the wind feels wrong. Back in the depths of the forest, the child remains still. The wind circles her like an unseen guardian, rustling the leaves in slow, deliberate movements. The trees groan, shifting ever so slightly, as if drawing nearer. And then, silence. A low hum vibrates through the air, a presence stirring just beyond sight. Between the shadows, a pair of eyes blink open, glowing like burning embers. They are not the eyes of a beast, nor the gaze of something mortal. They watch the child with an intensity beyond hunger, beyond instinct. The ground itself trembles beneath their unseen presence. Then, from the darkness, a whisper drifts on the wind, a voice neither male nor female, neither old nor young. It is soft yet powerful, like the hush before a storm. She is one of ours now. The shadows shift, curling like fingers, reaching forward. And then, movement. Unseen hands lift the child from the cold ground, cradling her in an embrace that is neither flesh nor bone. The wind stills, the trees cease their murmuring, and the night itself seems to exhale. The village believes the child is gone. They do not speak of her again. The mother folds away the memory of her daughter like an old piece of cloth, tucking it deep into the corners of her mind where sorrow cannot reach. The father, though burdened, allows himself to forget. It is easier that way. Life in Zubri moves on, as it always has. But in the heart of the forbidden forest, Ayana is not forgotten. She is not dead. She is becoming. The forest breathes around Ayana, a living, shifting entity that pulses with unseen energy. It is not merely trees and soil, it is something far older, far wiser, and it has claimed her as its own. The beings who raised her do not have faces, nor do they have names. They are the whispers in the wind, the shimmer in the moonlight, the shifting of shadows that flicker just beyond sight. They are neither fully human nor fully spirit, existing in a realm between the seen and the unseen. And they are her only family. Their voices come to her in echoes, in rustling leaves, in the soft hum of the river flowing through ancient roots. They do not speak as humans do, yet Ayana understands them. From the moment she could walk, she knew their language, not in words, but in feeling. They teach her as the forest teaches, through whispers, through signs, through the energy that hums beneath her skin. She learns to listen, truly listen, not just with her ears, but with her soul. The wind carries messages if one knows how to hear them. The earth pulses with memory, holding stories in its roots. The river sings of things lost and found, its currents shifting with hidden knowledge. Every leaf, every stone, every creature speaks a language that only the patient can understand. And Ayana is patient. She moves like the shadows, her steps light as air. The spirits guide her, shaping her body, strengthening her limbs. She does not stumble as humans do. She does not fear the dark or flinch at the growl of beasts. She runs as fast as the wind, climbs as high as the tallest branches, and leaps farther than any mortal child could. The forest bends to her presence, recognizing her as one of its own. She does not remember the night she was abandoned, but she knows she was not born of the forest. It is a truth she has never questioned, until now. There are moments, brief but undeniable, when she feels the weight of something missing. She watches the animals care for their young, pressing close for warmth and comfort. She sees the birds call to one another, their songs weaving through the air in shared harmony. And though she is never alone, she wonders, was she meant to have a mother? A father? A home beyond the trees? Sometimes, she looks down at her hands, at the skin that is warm and real, and she wonders what it means to be human. The spirits do not eat, but she hungers. The spirits do not sleep, but she dreams. And in those dreams, faces appear, faces she does not know but somehow remembers. A woman with sorrow in her eyes. A man who does not look back. A village swallowed by the mist of her memory. She does not ask the spirits for answers, for she knows they will not give them. Some things, she must seek on her own. So she watches the village from the shadows of the trees. She listens to their voices, tries to make sense of their words, their laughter, their sorrow. The way they gather, the way they touch. The way they fear the forest she calls home. It is in their fear that she finds the truth, she is not one of them. But she was. And if she was, once, then perhaps she still could be. She presses her palm to the earth, feeling the pulse beneath her fingertips. The spirits whisper their warning, but she does not heed them. She has lived in their world, learned their ways, but there is another world, one she was meant to know. The village is no longer a distant curiosity. It is a question demanding an answer. One morning, before the first light of dawn touches the sky, Ayana stands at the edge of the forest, where the shadows thin and the world of men begins. Behind her, the forest hums with life, the whispers of her unseen caretakers urging her to stay. But the call of something else, something unknown, something human, pulls at her like a tide. She takes her first step beyond the trees. She must know where she came from. The forest breathes around Ayana, a living, shifting entity that pulses with unseen energy. It is not merely trees and soil, it is something far older, far wiser, and it has claimed her as its own. The beings who raised her do not have faces, nor do they have names. They are the whispers in the wind, the shimmer in the moonlight, the shifting of shadows that flicker just beyond sight. They are neither fully human nor fully spirit, existing in a realm between the seen and the unseen. And they are her only family. Their voices come to her in echoes, in rustling leaves, in the soft hum of the river flowing through ancient roots. They do not speak as humans do, yet Ayana understands them. From the moment she could walk, she knew their language, not in words, but in feeling. They teach her as the forest teaches, through whispers, through signs, through the energy that hums beneath her skin. She learns to listen, truly listen, not just with her ears, but with her soul. The wind carries messages if one knows how to hear them. The earth pulses with memory, holding stories in its roots. The river sings of things lost and found, its currents shifting with hidden knowledge. Every leaf, every stone, every creature speaks a language that only the patient can understand. And Ayana is patient. She moves like the shadows, her steps light as air. The spirits guide her, shaping her body, strengthening her limbs. She does not stumble as humans do. She does not fear the dark or flinch at the growl of beasts. She runs as fast as the wind, climbs as high as the tallest branches, and leaps farther than any mortal child could. The forest bends to her presence, recognizing her as one of its own. She does not remember the night she was abandoned, but she knows she was not born of the forest. It is a truth she has never questioned, until now. There are moments, brief but undeniable, when she feels the weight of something missing. She watches the animals care for their young, pressing close for warmth and comfort. She sees the birds call to one another, their songs weaving through the air in shared harmony. And though she is never alone, she wonders, Was she meant to have a mother? A father? A home beyond the trees? Sometimes, she looks down at her hands, at the skin that is warm and real, and she wonders what it means to be human. The spirits do not eat, but she hungers. The spirits do not sleep, but she dreams. And in those dreams, faces appear, faces she does not know but somehow remembers. A woman with sorrow in her eyes. A man who does not look back. A village swallowed by the mist of her memory. She does not ask the spirits for answers, for she knows they will not give them. Some things, she must seek on her own. So she watches the village from the shadows of the trees. She listens to their voices, tries to make sense of their words, their laughter, their sorrow. The way they gather, the way they touch. The way they fear the forest she calls home. It is in their fear that she finds the truth. She is not one of them. But she was. And if she was, once, then perhaps she still could be. She presses her palm to the earth, feeling the pulse beneath her fingertips. The spirits whisper their warning, but she does not heed them. She has lived in their world, learned their ways, but there is another world, one she was meant to know. The village is no longer a distant curiosity. It is a question demanding an answer. One morning, before the first light of dawn touches the sky, Ayana stands at the edge of the forest, where the shadows thin and the world of men begins. Behind her, the forest hums with life, the whispers of her unseen caretakers urging her to stay. But the call of something else, something unknown, something human, pulls at her like a tide. She takes her first step beyond the trees. The silence in the village is thick, pressing against the ears of those gathered. Ayana stands at the center of it all, her golden eyes scanning the faces of the people who once chose to forget her. She does not rage. She does not demand vengeance. She wants the truth. Her voice, when she speaks, is calm but carries the weight of something far greater than anger. Why? One word. One question. Yet it unravels them. Her mother is the first to break. A sob tears from her throat as she falls to her knees, her hands trembling against the dirt. We were afraid, she whispers, her face streaked with tears. We had no choice. Ayana watches her, unreadable. The elders shift uncomfortably, their expressions dark with guilt. One of them, an old man with deep lines carved into his face, stares at the ground. Another wrings her hands, eyes darting between Ayana and the shaman, as if waiting for him to speak. The shaman does not look away. Unlike the others, he meets Ayana's gaze. His face is etched with something between fear and resignation, as though he always knew this day would come. You were never cursed, he says at last, his voice rough as though dragged from deep within him. The spirits did not warn us against you. The words ripple through the gathered villagers, confusion twisting their faces. You lied, someone murmurs. The shaman's jaw tightens, but he does not acknowledge the accusation. His eyes remain locked on Ayana. The night you were born, he continues, I saw the signs. Not of death. Not of misfortune. But of power. His fingers tighten around the staff in his hands, knuckles white. Power unlike any had ever seen before. The villagers murmur, casting nervous glances at Ayana. She stands motionless, waiting for him to finish. You were not weak, Ayana, the shaman confesses. You were too strong. A shudder passes through the crowd. From the moment you took your first breath, the spirits whispered your name. They did not curse you. They feared you. Ayana tilts her head, her expression unreadable. Why? She asks again. The shaman exhales slowly. Because you could unmake everything we had built. The villagers flinch as if the words themselves are an open wound. We have always lived by the wisdom of the spirits, he says. By the guidance of those who came before us. My power, the elders' authority, the balance of this village, it all depends on our connection to them. His grip on his staff loosens slightly. But you were something different. His voice turns bitter. The spirits could not touch you. You were beyond them. A heavy silence follows his words. Ayana blinks slowly. So you cast me away. The shaman does not deny it. Her mother sobs harder, curling into herself, whispering apologies over and over again. The elders lower their heads, unable to meet Ayana's gaze. The villagers whisper, their fears shifting, twisting into something new. Doubt. Realization. They had abandoned her not because she was weak, but because she was strong. Ayana closes her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply, feeling the weight of the truth settle over her. When she opens them, she is no longer looking at the shaman, nor the elders, nor the mother who abandoned her. She is looking at all of them. And they cannot look back. She must know where she came from. A hush falls over the village as Ayana lowers her gaze. No words leave her lips, yet the air around her shifts. A cold wind snakes through the huts, carrying whispers too faint to understand. The villagers huddle together, their fear thick enough to taste. Then, the sky darkens. Not with the coming of night, nor with the passing of a cloud. This darkness is different, thick, suffocating, alive. It moves unnaturally, swallowing the stars, pressing down on the village like the weight of unseen eyes. A wail breaks the silence. An old woman clutches her chest, gasping as if the very air has turned to ice in her lungs. A child cries out, pointing at the ground, where shadows stretch unnaturally, twisting and curling as though they have a will of their own. The elders tremble. The shaman grips his staff, but it is useless in his hands. The wind howls through the village, but it is not the wind they know. It carries voices, low, murmuring, insidious. Some sound like the rustling of leaves, others like a chorus of forgotten souls. The spirits have come. Ayana does not move. She watches. She listens. A man falls to his knees, clasping his hands together. Please, he cries. We didn't know. We were afraid. A woman sobs, pulling her children close. Stop this. Have mercy. The spirits do not answer with words. The earth trembles. Huts rattle, their foundations groaning under an unseen force. A gust of wind rips through the village, scattering baskets, tearing cloth from lines, knocking down those who are too weak to stand. Still, Ayana does not move. The shaman stares at her, breathless, his face pale. Call them back. His voice is not the commanding presence it once was. It is raw, desperate. You control them, don't you? Ayana tilts her head, considering. Did you call me back when I was left to die? The words strike deeper than any weapon. The shaman staggers, gripping his staff as though it is the only thing keeping him upright. The spirits do not relent. The whispers grow louder, overlapping, a chorus of voices filled with something ancient and vengeful. They swirl through the village, wrapping around those who once turned their backs on Ayana. The crops wither in an instant. The water in the village well turns black, stagnant. The villagers cry out in horror. Ayana, her mother wails. She crawls toward her daughter on hands and knees, tears streaming down her face. Please, my child. Have mercy. Ayana's expression does not change. She had begged for mercy once. She had cried, cold and alone, abandoned to a fate they chose for her. And yet, she had survived. The spirits had taken her in, shaped her into something beyond their understanding. They had not forgotten what had been done to her. And now, neither would the village. She watches as the people of Zubri sink to their knees, pleading, weeping, calling out her name. For the first time, they know what it means to be powerless. The shaman staggers forward, his voice raw with desperation. She is a demon, he shouts, his trembling hands raised toward the villagers. You saw what she did. She has cursed our land, summoned the spirits to punish us. The villagers, still shaken by the unnatural storm that swept through their homes, glance between the shaman and Ayana, fear clouding their faces. If we do not act now, the shaman continues, his voice growing in urgency, she will bring ruin upon us all. A murmur rises among the crowd. Some nod, clutching their children close, while others hesitate, their gazes locked onto Ayana, onto the woman they once left to die, who had returned with the power of something far greater than any human. Ayana remains silent, her expression unreadable. She has seen fear before, felt it when she was cast away as an infant, heard it whispered among the spirits who raised her. But now, she sees something else in the villagers' eyes. Doubt. They do not know what to believe. The shaman sees it too. His power over them is slipping. She is not one of us, he cries, voice cracking. We must cast her out before it is too late. The villagers hesitate. Some step forward, uncertain. Others back away. Ayana watches them, unmoving. Then, she raises her hand. A wind rushes through the village, not wild and violent like before, but controlled, precise. The thick clouds above part, revealing the moon, silver and full, casting an ethereal glow upon the land. And then they see them. Spirits. They linger just beyond the veil of the human world, shifting in the air like shimmering shadows. Some are faceless figures, their forms barely distinguishable from the night. Others have luminous eyes that hold knowledge beyond comprehension. The villagers gasp, some falling to their knees in reverence, others crying out in terror. They have always been here, Ayana says at last, her voice soft yet carrying across the village. They watched when you cast me away. They watched as I grew. And now, they watch as you tremble before the truth. The shaman takes a step back. Tricks, he hisses. Spirits do not obey humans. I am not just human, Ayana replies. A gust of wind circles around her, lifting the edge of her cloak. The spirits whisper in languages no mortal can understand, their words weaving through the air like a forgotten song. The village is divided. Some bow before her, recognizing the power she wields. Others turn and flee, unable to face what they have denied for so long. The shaman sees his power slipping away. His rule, his authority, everything he has built on fear, it is crumbling before his eyes. And so, he makes his choice. With a sudden burst of movement, he lunges. A dagger, curved and gleaming in the moonlight, flashes in his grip. His target is Ayana's heart. The villagers scream. Ayana does not move. The wind howls. The spirits' voices rise in a deafening cry. The shaman stops mid-strike, his body frozen, his hand trembling. His dagger clatters to the ground. He gasps, eyes wide, as a force unseen wraps around him, draining the very essence from his limbs. Ayana steps forward, her glowing eyes locking onto his. You have no power here, she whispers. And with that, his strength vanishes. He crumples to his knees, his body weak, his voice stolen. The once feared ruler of the village is nothing more than a shell of himself. The people of Zubri watch in stunned silence. Ayana does not strike him down. She does not curse him as he once cursed her. She simply turns away. The village remains deathly silent, the weight of the moment pressing down like an invisible force. Kneeling before Ayana, the people of Zubri bow their heads, not just in fear, but in shame. The woman they had once left to die now stands before them, not as a spirit of vengeance, but as something greater. They expect retribution. A curse. An unrelenting wrath that will bring ruin to their land, just as they had feared when she was born. But Ayana does not speak. She looks at them, her glowing eyes scanning the faces that trembled beneath her gaze. The elders who had decreed her death. The shaman who had tried to erase her existence. The mother who had once held her, then abandoned her. The wind shifts, carrying the whispers of unseen spirits through the village, rustling thatched roofs and swaying the torches that line the paths. The people flinch, expecting the worst. But Ayana simply turns her back on them. A gasp ripples through the villagers. She is leaving. No punishment. No judgment. No final decree. She walks away, her bare feet making no sound against the earth, her form merging into the night like a shadow returning to the unseen. The spirits follow her, their whispers fading into the wind. The villagers remain on their knees, waiting. But nothing comes. The sky clears. The earth stills. The storm is over. Only when she is gone do they realize what they have done. They had cast her away out of fear. And now, they have lost her forever. Mothers clutch their children closer, elders wipe their weary eyes, and warriors who had once stood firm against danger now feel hollow inside. The shaman, his power stripped, sits in stunned silence. He, more than anyone, understands the truth. The village had not just abandoned a child that night, they had abandoned a destiny greater than themselves. The stories begin that very night. First in whispers, then in hushed conversations, then in grand retellings around the fire. The girl who was left to die. The girl who returned with the power of the unseen. The girl who defied the spirits and became one herself. Some say Ayana still walks the forests, watching, waiting. That she moves with the wind, her whispers carried through the trees. That her footsteps leave no mark, yet her presence is felt by those who listen. Travelers who stray too far from their villages sometimes speak of a woman with eyes like embers, appearing in the depths of the wild. A protector? A warning? No one knows. But the people of Zuberi never forget. They remain haunted by the echoes of their betrayal, by the silence of the one they had cast away. And on nights when the wind howls through the trees, carrying voices not entirely human, they wonder if she is watching. If she will ever return.